Good morning, everyone. It's a great treat to be back in this temple. As most of you know, I'm Nayaswami Asha, and my primary residence is Palo Alto, but all of Ananda is our home. So it's very nice to be with this part of the family. And this particular reading, as all of them actually, are really fabulous, and it takes us into places that are not easy for our minds to grasp, which is what is the nature of an avatar, and even perhaps more directly, what do we do about that fact? It's one thing to just contemplate the greatness, the potential greatness or the realized greatness in souls whose books we can read, whose pictures we can attune to, whose scriptures we can study. But the actual question that it always comes down to, in every case, is how does this affect my life? And primarily, as when Master first came to America, he brought with him one book that he'd written, the first book that he wrote. He called it The Science of Religion. He didn't actually write it himself. He outlined the ideas, and his disciple Ananda, who was more versed in English, actually wrote the ideas out for him. I say that because later Swami Kriyananda again wrote the ideas out for Master. He called the book, in that case, God is for Everyone. Master called it The Science of Religion. But the science of religion, here's Master, he's in India. This is 1920, just the end of the First World War. Now the world is so small with airplanes and the internet and the telephone and everything like that. We can literally be simultaneously everywhere. We're not at this moment live streaming this particular talk, but if we were, in this very moment, everywhere on the planet, anybody who had a computer could sign in, and we would all be having the same experience in real time. When Master came to America from India, he had to get on a ship, he had to cross oceans, he had to come to a place he didn't have any idea what was here in the same sense that we do now. Now, not taking into account his consciousness, just thinking about the way the planet was at that time. And for the people in India, you see, everybody thinks that their own watch is right. That's just the way we are, you know. In the play that many of you saw last night, Mrs. Lewis, who was the wife of a dentist in Massachusetts, in 1920 met Yogananda. I mean, think about this. Into this New England environment walks this man. Now, he wasn't an old man at that time. He himself was just in his mid-20s. He was a dynamic youth, and as they told us in the play last night, at least sometimes he was dressed completely in orange, including orange shoes and an orange turban, long hair, and he walks into this New England environment, and Mrs. Lewis is honest enough to say, you know, she thought he looked very strange, extremely strange, and then was generous in her heart enough to realize, well, she probably looked pretty strange to him too, because everybody thinks their watch is right. So Master's coming from a culture in which this is all very well understood. Dharmadas and Nirmala spent 10 years in India. I've been there a number of times, not only as a pilgrim, but also sharing these teachings. It's a very, very different environment over there. I have to say, and I do say this humbly, Master said ignorance is 50-50 East and West. It's just different ignorance, right? But, you know, when you start in with the idea of God realization and the purpose of life is spiritual, and we're all devotees and there are these great masters and teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, everybody knows that in that culture. And in the 1920s, that Master lived in a very spiritual atmosphere, especially then, because the materialism of the West hadn't really invaded. And he's leaving all of that to come to America. I mean, from the Indian side, America was, well, about as heathen as you could get. So he had to stop and think, like, how do I bridge this? I can't bridge it with mantras and fire ceremonies and, you know, how about the Hindu gods and goddesses? It's just out of the question. But of course, a master understands that underneath all of this, we're all one reality. And a master, of course, remembering all his past incarnations, knows that he's been east and west and north and south and dark and light-skinned and everything that we could possibly be. It's not merely that it's, underneath the same. We've actually been it. We've been born into a body, and then all of a sudden, my watch is right. This is how we're supposed to be. So he had to bridge all of that and find what is the unifying truth. And he came up with them brilliantly. Very simple, 2 principles. Every sentient creature, not merely human beings, but everything that lives and breathes, down to the worm, the snail, the ant, whatever it is seeking 2 things: to escape suffering and to increase happiness. And you can look at your whole life, top to bottom, and every decision you made, whether brilliant or idiotic, it seemed like a good idea at the time. That's my mantra. In retrospect, you cannot understand what you were thinking. But it seemed like a good idea at the time. Because somehow we thought it would reduce our pain and or increase our happiness. And, religion for people is dogmas and rituals and priests and sacraments and all of these different things that we sort of figure out how to do. But the reason we become engaged in those is because somewhere way back here, we thought it would decrease our suffering and decrease our suffering and increase our happiness. Isn't that so? And then everything else follows. Now there's another principle here that Master's trying to explain to us, which is this isn't anybody's opinion. And this isn't even religion. This is just the way we are made. And what we find out is we discover what causes us suffering. And we discover what causes us happiness. Then we find out that we weren't the first ones to do this. And so we discover masters, teachers, scriptures, and then rituals and sometimes dogmas and so on, because we were not the first. Now, the power of the incarnated beings that we now reverence as masters is not merely their brilliant articulation. I mean, it's nice, but you can be really, really smart and really, really stupid at the same time, in the sense that what you say is not who you are. And sometimes there's that expression, who you are speaks so loudly that I can't hear what you're saying. But the masters bring us this extraordinary reality, which is sometimes they articulate. Some masters are completely silent, they never say anything. But what the masters are offering us is the fruit of their actual experience. And for me at least, I find this very comforting. I was thinking of this first at Christmas time. Yogananda, at least, we have photographs of him, and recently because of the Awake movie, we now have a lot of film about Master. And we know that he really lived. We have Swami Kriyananda, who knew him personally, and Swami could tell us so many stories about what Master was really like. It hasn't just been reduced, like Krishna, to this blue creature playing the flute, dancing with the gopis in the moonlight, which is thrilling stories, but it's a little removed. But Yogananda walked the streets of New York. He rode around in a car. He went to Rockefeller Center. He put on a slicker so he could stand by Niagara Falls. He did lots of things that we all have done. And Swami Kriyananda, whose life many of us witnessed very up close, did many, many more. So we see them living as human beings. So I was thinking about the life of Jesus, and I presume I was there when Jesus was living because I can see it. That's the only way I can put it. And I don't think I was an important player, but I can see it. So therefore, I understand also that Jesus must have actually been a real person. Now, this is the part that I'm wanting to say. A master is, we call him, a self-realized master. That means that at some point, he realized his self. And then once he realized his own divinity, as this whole humorous dialogue is going on, then from that point on, he can reincarnate as he chooses to help. But he walked from the beginning all the way to that infinity. Master said that he remembered his individuality all the way back to being a diamond. Now think about that. I asked Swami Kriyananda, actually it was Nirmoha, who happens to be sitting here today. He asked the question once, how long does it take to progress from being a diamond? Wow, I said, that is an amazing question. The next time I have a chance, I'll ask Swami. I thought that was a fascinating question. I went to Swami, he was having breakfast in Los Angeles at his apartment, and I said, sir, I might have even given you credit, but I think I saved you the embarrassment you will see in just a moment. I said, someone asked me how long it took Master to evolve from being a diamond, and what happens next? Does he become a ruby? Like where do you go from being a diamond? Swami looked at me and he said, that is a really stupid question. By now, I was a little sturdier in my relationship to Swamiji. In the beginning, if he said that to me, it would have taken me a month to recover. I just said, I thought it was really interesting. And so then he went back to his breakfast for a moment. And in his way, often Swamiji says when he repudiates and says, like, I don't know, or I'm not interested, and then let something go, then something will come to him. And he just turned to me and he said this, all time is short compared to eternity. You see, from our perspective, we think, I'm not wearing a diamond, maybe some of you are, like, how did I get from there to there? And what happened in between? But the fact is, you see, every possible thing that happened in between happened to Lahiri, to Babaji, to Jesus, to Sri Yukteswar, to Master. In other words, wherever you are standing on the spiritual path. Now, we are unique. Master said every atom is dowered with individuality. He had such a way with language. I'm a wordsmith myself, but I'm just an ant compared to the way he used language. Every atom is dowered with individuality, and each one of us, this is the extraordinary mystery of creation. Even when the bubble merges back into the ocean, it's still the bubble. And this individuality that we all have, we've had it from the beginning and we will have it for all eternity. We may cease to identify with it, with the intensity that we identify now, but that doesn't mean it ceases to exist. And therefore, the individuality of each of these masters that remembers being a diamond, a specific diamond. Gemstones all do have personalities. They really do, at least I think they do. And remembers back to that. That individuality moved through all of this. So it isn't really the name that we give ourselves, it's we are different vibrations of awareness. Swami described it. He said all creatures look the same to him. He said even animals. He said they're just, here's the spectrum between complete ego involvement and spiritual freedom, and even animals, I suppose even diamonds, are just scooting up the spectrum. And Swamiji said they all look the same to him. Swamiji didn't have a particular relationship with animals, so it was always just amazing sometimes to see it the way he would relate. He would sort of look like at a dog or something like this. Dogs were the ones that I saw the most often, and he would often say, "Hello, beast." And you could see that there was something happening. He was looking at the particular vibration of awareness that had brought that unique individuality to be a dog. We take the process of reincarnation, we assume the form that allows us to express the full potential of our consciousness at that time. So a dog has more awareness, really, than a diamond, because a diamond really just sits there. A dog can at least go around and have experiences. And if the individuality needs those experiences, it gets to be a dog. And when it finishes the potential of being a dog, it comes out of the dog's body and it moves to the next, and moves to the next, whatever that might be. Some may think that the dog moves to being a cat. That Master actually put dogs ahead of cats. I'm so sorry to say that, but he did. But in our individuality, I chose to be this woman, American woman, this particular time. Everybody had their choice with the family, with the DNA, with the genetics. Karma comes before all of that. We choose the DNA and the genetics and the environment and all of that because it will allow us to express the full potential of our consciousness. And we're just at a certain vibration of awareness. If we could see it, we could put a number and a sound and a color, but we've moved from complete unawareness ultimately to self-realization. And every master has gone through every single stage, every vibration of awareness until infinity. Now, I find great comfort in that because some of the vibrations that I get caught in don't look a lot like Babaji. But I realized the only way to get to Babaji is from here. And not merely can the masters help us through this, they have walked. They have shifted this vibration into the next one. And then they have shifted it again. And compared to eternity, all time is short. When Swamiji was going through one of his periods, which he did many times at the end of relatively bad health, I just said, "Sir, how are you feeling today?" "Oh," he said, "compared to eternity, quite fine." Now, because his awareness was greatly expanded, and he moved that body around, but his reality was not that body. Just in the same way that I carry this watch when I'm wearing it. Swamiji, he said, somebody used the phrase lifting iron with him, lifting weights. He said lifting iron to him was sleeping with his watch on. Every time he turned over, I don't feel the weight of carrying this watch, but I know that I'm carrying it. And every so often, it catches my attention. It's there. Imagine relating to your body like that. Imagine relating to your personality and all your karma like that. That I carry it. I'm lifting iron. I'm carrying it around, and it is something we have to carry. But it's such, it's such a way out there part of who I actually am. Last night in the vignettes that we were sharing of the different disciples of Master, Rajasi, who was Master's most advanced male disciple and was put into a state of samadhi very early in his relationship with his guru, he talked about how his life after that was like projected on the screen of cosmic consciousness. And he still lived it. Master kept him in the business world because his job was, among other things, was to make a lot of money so he could establish Master's work, and who knows what karma he was also finishing. But just imagine if we're far enough larger. You see, it's not that we actually leave this life. It's not like we don't do it anymore. We have to keep doing it. But we're doing it from here. We're carrying it like a watch. And, if the watch doesn't work, you've got to make it work. And if it gets clouded and you get, dampness under the glass, whatever it might be, we're still responsible. So we just become bigger and bigger around it. And thus the example of the Master's lives is a valid one. They truly enter into this reality, and they live according to these rules. They're not bound as we are. I think of it, I have a friend who's incarcerated in prison, falsely, but he's incarcerated, and now he's in a minimum security, but he used to be in Folsom. And it was quite something to go in there. He was way, way in the bowels of Folsom. You know, you go through all these locks. You go through one door, and then this, just like the movies, clang, this thing closes behind you, and then the other one opens, and then you step, and you step, and you step, and you're searched, and you're this, and you're that. Finally, you get way into the center, and you know, the men, and then you're just sitting in something that looks like a multi-purpose room in a junior high school with all, in this case, men, you know, when they had more freedom, did things, or at least were accused of doing things that got them there. And, you know, once I was in there, and once those prisoners were in there, especially those prisoners, they can't just walk out. You know, I could walk out, but even I, to get out, had to go through all those realities. Well, I was a visitor. I walked in, and then I could walk out. They were trapped. And I realized when I was sitting in that room one day, that's exactly what Master did. You know, we are imprisoned. We're not behind bars, but we are imprisoned. I am imprisoned by the limitations of my poor little vibration of awareness to understand what really causes me suffering and what really gives me happiness. And that's where we're imprisoned, isn't it? Because we're not in a state of perfect bliss. And I'm imprisoned by all my attachments, karmic misunderstandings, whatever it might be. So the masters come all the way in, and they go through all those airlocks, those locks, and they live in the prison. But they committed no crime, you see. And at any point, they could just pull out. But what they are is they're teaching us how to open the doors. But when they're in the prison, they're in the same world we're in. You know, Master had to work hard to earn the money. And when you hear, and the movie Awake brought some of that more to mind, you know, he went to Mexico at one point, and he didn't know if he was coming back. You know, he had just had it with America. He'd been sued. You know, his own disciples had betrayed him. All the money he'd earned had been lost. They were just, it's like, as he said too, in India, and when he went back to India, he said, I was sitting under a tree and people were just piling rupees into my lap, begging me to stay there. I go back to America and I'm the one who have to pay all the bills. You know, it's just a wholly different universe, and it was tiresome, let's put it mildly. It was tiresome, but he was in the prison. He had to live by the prison rules. But he taught us then what causes suffering and what causes happiness. Because our prison isn't created by the walls of Folsom. And relatively speaking, that's easy. Our prison is with us wherever we are. I want, I have to have, I need, I am anything but. I am Om, I am Om. I am blissful, I am free. I am one with the infinite. So the masters come and they live in our world, but they sing this melody to us all the time. You are free. You are infinite. You are bliss. Listen to me and sing with me. This is why they were born. This is why we were born. And how long it takes? Swamiji gave a satsang at Ananda village in the 70s. The whole community was smaller than this. We were all sitting in a room smaller than this. And Swamiji went into some extraordinary bhav. It was an amazing evening. And he said two things. First, he said at the end, he said, when you reach liberation, he said, you look back at all those incarnations beyond count. He said, and you realize that the only thing that really happened in an enduring way was when your spirit touched into infinity. And like pearls on a string, you see those moments when you had divine contact, when your vibration shifted into the infinite. All of that remains. Everything else you see was just a shadow and light. Isn't that amazing to look at? Comforting in the moment. And then he said, this way, with so much sympathy, he looked at all our eager little faces. You will get it right sooner or later, he said. Why waste a few million years? find our happiness now. God bless.